Hi, welcome to DramaMeans. This week we're talking about the 2023 Japanese anime movie Spy Family Code White. Today drama means secret identities, drama means found family, and drama means jumping to conclusions on what anyone is thinking.
So first, a little bit of a summary. Set within the backdrop of a fictitious Cold War, the Forgers may seem like just another boring family, but each of them is living a double life. Mild-mannered father Lloyd is a super spy. Hard-working mother Yor is a deadly assassin. Their adorable adopted daughter Anya can read people's minds, and the loyal family dog Bond can see into the future.
So I am still royally hungover for unknown.
And whiskey.
And whiskey. No, I don't drink.
Just hungover on unknown.
On unknown, yes. I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop watching it. I can't stop looking at all the Instagram posts about it.
Making little fan art pieces.
Yes. So.
Very, very obsessed. This one's clinging on to you.
It is. It's like I've been so hungover that I've been like up and down roller coaster of like melancholy and then like giddiness whenever I watch like a scene, and then they've been doing like they're still promoting and they've been doing interviews and stuff, and then I'm just like, oh, and then I finish watching all these things and I'm like, oh, melancholy, and I haven't been wanting to watch anything else.
Which means Spy Family is a good change of pace because it is nothing like Unknown.
Yes.
In any way.
And we actually like made it to the theaters to see this movie. Kind of the only thing I watched this week. So we're gonna talk about that.
So for those who haven't watched Spy Family, the animated series, they had a season 1. The show was incredibly popular. It was one of the biggest shows of last year or the year before. I mean, it was huge. Then this movie technically takes place between season 1 and 2, right?
I'm not actually sure when it takes place. Like, because it's so standalone. Like, you don't need to watch the movie in order to watch the series. You don't really need to watch the series in order to watch the movie.
Yeah, they do a good job, and we'll talk about that, about how they keep the series and the movie separate. But as far as we went, we'd seen season 1. We hadn't seen season 2 yet. We decided to go see the movie after a little bit of Googling to figure out whether or not you needed to see season 2 first, or vice versa. But then decided to go see the movie in the theaters because it was actually out and released here.
So a little bit about the characters. I really like how they're kind of similar to each other, and they're kind of like this band of misfits that somehow ended up, like through coincidence, that they ended up together in this fake family that they're like putting on, you know, for a mission, but no one, like, not everyone knows about the mission.
I mean, only really Lloyd knows about the mission, and Anya knows about the mission because she can read Lloyd's mind, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And the idea that these people and the dog have been thrown together in the most untraditional family sense ever. Like, Lloyd never wanted a family. Yor never thought that she wanted a family. Anya desperately wanted just a normal family and gets this weird spy family, but it's really the perfect family for her because she's so into like mischief and spy stuff and getting into, you know, not getting into trouble necessarily, but she's a meddler.
I love how her main thing is that every time she reads their minds, and then like, you know, he's thinking about spy stuff and she's thinking about assassin stuff, and she's always like, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's always like, it's so exciting. It's that like child point of view of like everything. Like, oh my gosh, that is so cool.
I don't know, it's so funny because they really draw on the comedy too, and they know exactly like how to like make them so different from each other in terms of like how Lloyd is so straight edge and like, you know, he's so like logical, and then but it's so funny that he like has to point out everything that's like Anya be like freaking out about something like, oh, this is so cool, da da da, and he's like, well, yes, that is how it is. Like,
Yeah, he's very practical in his observations of the world. Like everything is very cut and dry. It's this is the way it is because that's the way it is. And so there's no wonder. And then Anya is all the wonder and everything is a unique experience. The greatest, I don't know if it was in the movie or was in season 2 where she walks up to Lloyd and she's like, "Oh, we didn't see any fish in the pond." And he's like, "That's because it's a fountain." Like, and he's just so matter of fact of like, "Yes, there were no fish over there. You couldn't have hoped to see fish. I don't know why you thought you were going to see fish, silly little girl." Like, and he doesn't say all that, but it's kind of done in his mind, and it's just cracks me up of like how logical and efficient he is.
But I also like how similar they are in terms of how they like immediately jump to conclusions of like when they're thinking about something, their first thought is, "Oh no, I did this," and they're gonna think I'm an assassin, and I'm, like, or I am the spy, or I can, like, the first thing that's gonna come through their heads is I can read minds.
Well, it's their insecurities kind of war on their shoulder, right? Like, I think that's a really fun part of the show, that every single character has a secret. And when you have a secret, you're always afraid that someone can see through you and they're going to see your secret. So, like, that's the insecurity that they all wear. And so the idea that anytime someone looks at you cross-eyed, you're like, "Oh no, can they see my secret?" Because, like, Anya always goes like, "Oh, she can't tell her dad that the store has cherry liqueur because then how did you know this the store has that? Can you read minds? And the dog can tell the future? What? I'm abandoning you both." It's like all of her fears and insecurities in every single thought is hilarious, and all the characters do it. And it's really well done to me. It's so simple, but it's so rewarding and interesting to me.
Yeah. And it's just like you see how similar they are and how just like this family works, even though it's like pretty dysfunctional.
Well, they all want the family to work for various reasons, and I think to spite themselves, like Lloyd is starting to fall in love with his family as a family, and Yor is starting to fall in love with this idea of being a mom and being a wife and just having this weird family that she never really wanted. And I think...
Or thought she could have.
That's a very good point. But none of these characters set out to have that in their lives, and so now that their eye is still on the prize, like 90% of the show is about the mission, but when they come back and have these family moments, they're all starting to realize how they can coexist, and that it's actually kind of like, oh, if this wasn't a thing, if the Spy Family dissolved tomorrow, all of them would be pretty destroyed about it. I think they do a good job of balancing that kind of cynical humor and the heart of the show, and especially in the movie, I felt like in a contained, hour and a half, they kind of hit all of the hills and valleys of the family interaction as a farce, and the interaction between the different characters and the mission, and then the heart and the love and the keeping the secrets, but also, oh, do I really want to keep secrets anymore? Why can't we just be a normal family? But they were able to hit all of those things in a fairly short amount of time.
It's like nice because it seems like nowadays, like a lot of movies can't be a movie anymore. Like there always has to be a part 2 and a part 3 and in order to tell one story, where it's like really nice that this is like, that contained story where like, okay, this movie, it's a small movie. It's beginning, middle, and end. And you don't necessarily need like anything more beyond it. I mean, there is, of course, because there's a series, but...
Yeah, I find it interesting that so many things we watch nowadays, because they're always trying to set up a sequel, nothing ever ends anymore. Everything just stops. Like, the filmmakers have picked a point where the show or movie stops, and then you'll have to watch the next one. And the fact that this is a movie that is attached to a series, and they can still find a way to end it and give it an ending, is really appreciated. It just feels like you watch something complete, even though, of course, there's more. It's part of a series, and of course you can go watch the season 2 now, like we did. But it does feel like you walk out of that movie theater going, oh yeah, I watched a movie. It had a beginning, middle, and it ended. It didn't just stop when it felt like stopping.
Yeah. I really loved how, like, it's so simple in terms of, like, getting the idea to go on this, like, little family vacation solely for, like, to test out this dessert, which is like, they justified it by saying, oh, it's part of like the overall mission, but it's like this excuse to go take this family vacation. And then how it actually begins of like, letting the story build is like Anya going and like eating someone else's piece of chocolate.
It always starts from such a child place, which I really like, because it feels like the challenge of a show like this is, how do you get a kid involved in high stakes spy stuff? And they find child ways to keep her involved in the story that then morph into very adult drama. And then she's running for her life. But she's a child, and they never really lose focus of that they need to keep her storyline kind of childish and silly and light. And she gets mixed up in this not because she's a super spy, it's because she's a kid.
Yeah. And I love how they include Bond in it, their family dog. Like, I love that Bond gets to go on family vacation also.
And they don't let him in the restaurant, but then he gets his own bowl of food outside. Like they take care of Bond. It's pretty good.
I love it. Bond's my favorite.
I think that addition to the show, like the fact that they got this family dog, so now on paper they are the perfect family, right? They're the wife, the husband, the kid, the dog. They're just perfect. That's what you're supposed to have. We got the family dog, and he's also a reject and an outcast. He has every bit of character backstory and character development that any of the other ones do. And so they've actually really tried to flush out this story. And going forward, he gets episodes of his own.
Yeah, I love it. And also Bond is really the real reason why this whole story begins, in terms of like going into the cargo hold to find this secret treasure that is actually like a piece of chocolate. It's like...
Well, yeah, because he can see the future, and then Anya can read his mind. So those two have to coexist. Like, without her reading his mind, no one cares if the dog can tell the future, right?
Yeah. It's just so, like, it's so well crafted, but it's so, like, simple, and it's very comedic. So you may not, like, take it's that seriously, but it is like the characters are well crafted. Like the storyline is very well crafted, and it works so well.
I find shows like this are like sneakily smart, or for years and years people would talk about, like The Simpsons or something, where you're like, oh, it's a cartoon, it's a stupid cartoon, but if you're really paying attention, it's actually very smart. And they use these big kind of dumb plot twists, Anya eats a piece of chocolate, but it's a way to wind the plot really tightly. And so I don't think a lot of people always appreciate when you're watching a show that's very silly and it's kind of goofy and again, childish in places, but then again, how tight the narrative is actually wound and how smart the storytelling is. Because at the beginning of the day, it's like, oh, we're traveling to the countryside to get a piece of pie so that she gets like so convoluted, and like, in order for this big bad spy mission, we must go learn how to make this secret pie from this country town. And it's just goofy. But then you get into the story mechanics, and like, oh, that's really smart. Oh, they've used every piece of the animal all the time.
Yeah. And that leads to basically, the piece of pie they call Mary Mary is like, they go to eat it, and then the main bad guy comes and like basically steals the pie from them and eats it. And I love how it like comes back around.
Yeah.
It works so well, and like how like Lloyd loses at first, and then he wins at the end. And it's just like the same, it's good storytelling, but then it's like cartoon, and it's fun, and it's light.
I think sometimes we get lost in the weeds when we're talking about very adult entertainment, and we're so focused on plot twists and character dynamics and all these different things that make a good adult show, that it's so nice to watch something just a little simpler, where is it a little coincidental that the evil general shows up at the same pie place and steals the last piece of pie? Yes, but it's a cartoon and you forgive them for the coincidence, but it allows you to tell this very simple story with simple thematics and simple story structure, and then they pile on all the fun on top of it so that you don't have to be confused ever. You don't have to be wondering what's going on. It's just you can enjoy the little ride that it gives you.
Yeah. We call it anime.
Whatever. Cartoon, animation, anime. I know it's anime.
We get it. It's a little convoluted, but I also think a lot of the adult movies that we watch where it's like very like overly dark for like dark's sake, it's like not even like they're trying too hard to like make it so overly complex and like adult like, and you know, putting like random scenes in to be like edgy is like almost backfiring, whereas this one, since it's staying so simplistic, it really works, and you definitely do see like the tightly wound, you know, plot and storyline.
I will also say, even among other anime, a lot of anime goes too dark and too complicated, and tons of characters and so many thematics and things that work with the anime and some things that work against it. And by the time you watch episode 4, you're like, wait, what is happening? Whereas this is a little simpler. This is a little for comedy's sake. A lot of things are set up. And I think I've talked about it here a few times, but we talk about like, what are the pleasures of watching a particular show? Well, this show puts the comedy first. It puts the silliness first, and then they wind the plot around that, rather than putting the drama first and then injecting a little bit of comedy here and there. So like their priority here is to make a fun, light, enjoyable show to watch. And then they're like, okay, how do we make it make sense?
Yeah. They also had like a 10-minute poop joke in this.
Which is perfect for kids. Like, she's a child, and the fact that her concern for a good 10 minutes of the movie is trying not to poop.
Yeah, it to me it went a little too long, but
No,
you know.
no such thing.
The thing is, throughout the movie, I felt like I was, you know, towards the beginning, like, I'm kind of, like, missing a lot more of, like, action, a little bit more, like, spy things. I really wanted, like, Lloyd to be, like, extra cool in the restaurant. And I know, like, you know, through the end, we know why he needed to lose, you know, in that scene. But it was just like, I need them to do more spy-y things and more action-y things. But they definitely served you all the action in, like, the most important part.
I will go back to the poop joke for a second. Speaking of the action. Because if you think about the way the end is structured, you have the spy doing spy things. He's infiltrating, he's trying to figure out how to find his daughter. Like, he's doing the spy things. The assassin is doing assassin things. She's in a life or death battle against a giant man-killing machine. And then you have the kid who's just trying to hold her poop in. She's doing kid things. But it's all important to the mission because there's a spy family mission behind all three of those things. And so the kid's mission is just important, but they don't make her a super badass spy. They make her a kid. And it's like so freaking smart. So I'll say it's one of the smarter poop jokes I've ever seen. So it can go on for 10 minutes. It's fine.
Yes, it's fine. But yes, it's like during that, it's like so many layers, and it's done so well. And it is like you are rooting for every one of them. You know, and it just brings that, like, tension and that suspense out.
I think that's a big part of this show, that the secret sauce of this show is that you are rooting for all of the family. Because Lloyd is on one side of a Cold War, Yor is on the other side of a Cold War. They obviously don't know each other, are on opposite sides. But the antagonists they tend to fight actually aren't on either side either. They're antagonists they can both fight. It's always people who are trying to start a war, outside forces that are coming in to try to put East and West against each other. And so they're kind of unified in their goal, even though they're on opposite sides, which is like a metaphor for possibly for marriage and for family, of like, just because you come with a different perspective on life and the world doesn't mean that your wife or husband is wrong. It means that there's a maybe common ground that you're actually fighting for. So there's like big, deep metaphors here as well, besides silly jokes and, you know, dogs that can tell the future.
Which is, like, the most important part, really.
Yes, the second the dog showed up in the series, Mel was like, "Yep, okay."
But I do love how, like, at the end, they just, like, tie it, like, neatly and nicely into a little bow. They basically service each thing that they brought up.
Absolutely. They don't leave any thread untied that they didn't purposefully mean to, like, leave untied so that they have a series still, because they're still going to try to do a series. But they never ask a dramatic question they don't answer or they don't want answered.
So that's really great. And I just love how they end where they're just like, oh, we don't need Mary anymore, but we might need this. It's our next trip that we're going to go to.
Yeah, and it's like, that's super throwback to me. That feels like TV and movies of the old days of, like, you've gone on this zany adventure with these characters and then leaving on a, well, here comes the next zany adventure, which lets the audience kind of imagine what it would be like. And so you leave on this up note when you finish the movie, because you go, oh, they're going to do more of that thing that I liked watching so much. And even if they don't make that movie, it's just the mood when you leave the theater. You go, oh, that fun bunch of characters is going to keep doing that fun thing that I liked to watch. And it just puts you in a good mood.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a weird psychological thing that I think has fallen out a lot of times, because I think it got cliche, it got cheesy. But this idea that the characters are going to exist after you leave, but giving us a little bit of a wink to go, trust us. Like, they're still going to live on in your imagination, and go forth and imagine and think about this afterwards. And I think a lot of things these days, they don't want to do that because they actually want to sell you the next movie. They actually want you to have to pay more money and go and see the movie where they go to the South and chase down the cupcake or whatever. One thing we are seeing is this trend of anime movies attached to series. The series is popular enough. They think, oh, if we make a feature-length movie, we can get some more butts in the seats, maybe actually bring people to the anime. It's kind of a marketing tool, but also, I don't know, a little bit of a shameless cash grab, but also giving the fans more of what they really want. And I think there's a right way that it's done, and there's a very wrong way that it's done. And this goes back to something we talked about at the top of this being a very nice, close-ended story that had a beginning that came organically from what the series is. It had a clean goal. They went on a mission together. And at the end of the day, the result of that mission doesn't affect the overall arch of the story of the series. So if you didn't watch the movie, it doesn't need to exist for you. You can watch and enjoy the series just fine. And they could reference it in the series if they wanted, as a little wink to those who did see it. But it would be the same thing as referencing backstory you didn't see. It wouldn't be anything that you were missing out on. But it's still enjoyable. You still get an hour and a half of new material, and you get to spend time with your characters, and you get to see them go up and down. I thought they did a really good job of it here. So I think this is a good example of one that did it really well.
Yeah. I think one of my favorites is, like, I can't remember how many there were. If there's 2 or 3 of the My Hero Academia movies.
At least 2. I think we saw it 2. I don't know if I've seen a third one.
I can't remember, but it was so enjoyable. It's like a enclosed standalone movie, even though you get to see your characters, and they're doing a subplot thing, and then things happen, and then they go fight the bad guys. But it's just very, like, it's so enjoyable and so satisfying, like, watching those movies and then coming out of the theater, like, really, like, I don't know, just, like, satisfied.
I think the My Hero movie, the one of them at least, and this movie of Spy Family did a very similar thing. And so in the My Hero Academia movie, I think the thing that we're begging for in the series is Deku using his powers fully, because he can only use them a little bit without trashing his body, right? So there's this wish fulfillment the fans have of wanting to see him at full power, which you can't give to the fans because then the show's kind of over. But they figure out a way in the movie for him to use all of his power might one time. So we get to see it on screen, what it would look like if he got to use his power full time. And then they're able to organically take it away because the machine that allowed him to do that, the bracer he wore on his hands, breaks. So, you got to use your full power that one time, but you won't be able to do that again. You'll have to learn how to harness it yourself. Back to the series with you. And nothing has changed, but we got to see the thing we've been thirsting for. And here, too, in Spy Family, she has to get her star. She has to get her gold star by going to make this pie.
The Stella.
The Stella, the gold Stella. And if she makes the pie, then she'll get another Stella. But if she were to earn that Stella, then it would affect the series a little bit, right? So by the end, they kind of unwind it by like, oh, you know, the pie doesn't matter anymore because the vice principal's sick and now he's not going to judge the competition and yada, yada, yada. Details. But again, they're able to reset, you know, this idea so that we go into the series and nothing has really changed. We can go back to status quo, but we got to see a fun adventure in the meantime.
Yeah. Which leads us to... Okay, I'm going to start this off with, we went into the Demon Slayer movie, the first one. I don't even remember what it's called.
Doesn't matter. Hot garbage. Demon Slayer, hot garbage.
You know, not knowing what to expect, we watched season 1, we wanted to watch the movie, and it basically was, I forgot if it was like 2 or 3 episodes of the season 1 and anime, and then it gave you the newest episode 1 of the next season, and then they marketed it as the movie. And we were sitting there and we're like, what the hell's going on? And they didn't even bother to re-edit it and so it would be like a recap movie, kind of similar to like Anohana, you know, where it's just like a retelling of the series. But they just literally was like, you know, here's an episode, here are the credits after the episode, start new episode, and then you just kept watching that, and then you get to see one episode of
the new season before it premieres.
Yeah, and it was just so like, I'm like, why did I pay for this? And why are we sitting in a theater when we could just like, we've already seen all the episodes before, and then we're gonna see the next episode in like a week or 2. And it's like, if you had marketed it that way, and I'm like, oh yeah, I really want to see this series, you know, or the first episode in the theaters, then that's my choice. But now it feels like I've been scammed.
Oh, it felt like such a scam sitting there. We kept waiting for the movie to start. We're like, oh, maybe they're going to like play the episode from last season to kind of play us in to the movie. Like as like a, all right, here's 20 minutes of the old season so that you kind of get up to speed and get your brain revving at Demon Slayer speed, you know, at that pace. And then we'll show you the movie. And the movie never came.
Yeah. And what's funny is, so we did not watch the second movie.
The second Demon Slayer movie.
Yeah, the second Demon Slayer movie. So then then it came out, and then I was like on TikTok or whatever, and someone's like video was like them totally scarred after watching the movie because it was exactly the same way. It was like episodes from season 2, and then it was like, you know, I think it was like the first episode of season 3, and then they just sat there like dazed and confused in their theater seat. And then what the sad thing was, like in the comments section, it was like, well, that's always how they did it, so you should have known better.
No, incorrect. No. Again, it's not marketed that way. It's marketed as a movie.
Exactly.
And the fact that they're so lazy, they can't even edit the episodes into a movie and get rid of the act breaks and the episode breaks and the title credits. And they can't just smush this down to make us... That's what anime is, or at least that style of anime, is just a long story diced into pieces. So they could take 3 episodes and edit them into 1. They didn't even do that.
Yeah. It's like, it's a definite blatant money grab, and then also just the laziness of not wanting to put together a real product that they have been marketing it as.
And no one needs you to have a movie. If you don't want to do a movie, don't do a movie. No one's making you do it, but don't not even re-edit the story and then try to sell it to us as a movie.
Yeah. That's just, what is it in English? In Cantonese, it's called gansang. Like evil, like, merchant? Evil, like, seller? Like, evil conglomerate? I don't know, whatever. But it was just... Anyway.
It was not cool. Now, I've never walked out of a theater going, I've just been ripped off completely. Like, if you don't like a movie, that could be based on taste, And there are bad movies out there. There are movies that I've watched where I was like, ugh, I wish I didn't watch that. But at least it was a movie. This doesn't even get to qualify for that.
Yeah.
And then you still had the audacity to charge me to go sit in a theater and market it as the new Demon Slayer movie and give it a title. It's like, what on earth? The fact that they did it twice. Because we were on the fence. We're like, do you think this movie is going to be an actual movie? Or do you think it's going to be the same thing as last time? And we erred on the side of, this is going to be the same crap. And we were right. I would have been pissed at myself if I would have fallen for it the second time.
Yeah. I feel like that's... And don't get me wrong. We love this series.
Yeah, Demon Slayer is a great... It really works as a series.
Yeah. But it's just like the sheer, like, I don't give a fuck mentality that they just put it out. Like, they slapped it together and just put it out.
But it is. It's blatant cash grab. They just want the money. They just want it to be distributed so that people will go watch it. And I guess it worked the first time enough. They made enough money on the theater experience the first time they did it again. Which I can't imagine anyone putting themselves to that twice. But I couldn't imagine even thinking of doing that as a creator of anything. Going, all right, so we put the series out. Let's just give them 2 episodes and then we'll premiere the thing at the theater so you can see it a week early.
Yeah.
And we'll just call that job well done. Like, man, go fuck yourself, y'all. That's horrible.
Yeah.
It made me not want to watch the new season, and we did eventually. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to support this anymore. Like, that's just wrong.
Yeah. But, people will tolerate it because the series is very good. Story is amazing, but yeah.
All you can really do is just not give them your money again.
Yeah.
That's the only power you really have. Well, I won't fall for that again.
Yeah. And
the saddest part of the whole thing is that the anime movies can be done well.
Definitely. I mean, like, My Hero Academia did amazing. Now Spy Family. Previously... Well, the Lelouch movie was just a recap of seasons 1 and 2. I'm trying to think of the movies that I actually went to theaters to watch, but for a long time, they weren't really not mainstream enough to be in theaters. I'm really glad that we've gotten to a point where the anime movies are in theaters where we can actually go see it. I think there are a lot of places around the U.S. still have not gotten them in theaters, but luckily in LA, they do come out.
Yeah, in the bigger markets, they seem to have enough theater screens. Especially now, there's just nothing out. There's no movies in existence that they can afford to give a screen or 2 around town to an anime movie. And I think that's really the tragedy with the Demon Slayer thing is anime, as much as we want to say it's mainstream, it's still fairly niche. Like, it's a lot more popular than it was back in the day, but it's still a pretty niche thing. And the fact that you're trying to introduce it to major markets and put it in theaters, and the anime fans are begging for more content and they want to go to the theater to see it. And then you put out that steaming pile of garbage. So someone who has taken the chance to go, oh, I might check this anime thing out. I'll go to the theater and see that. You've immediately turned them off because they're like, what is this crap? Why are there end credits every 20 minutes in my movie?
Yeah.
So how are you supposed to show it to a new audience? Or as an anime fan, you take your friend to this movie and go, oh my god, Demon Slayer is so freaking good. You're going to love this. Well, I don't really watch anime. No, trust me. You're going to love this. And then that's what you have to sit through? You have to apologize to your friend and take them out to dinner and just be like, please, I didn't mean to do that to you.
Our next anime movie that's coming out, which I'm very excited about because I'm obsessed. Probably just as obsessed as Unknown.
I don't know, but it's gone a longer obsession. It's been going on a lot longer. And they played this preview during the Spy Family movie, which is another cool thing that now we get to see the previews on the big screen.
Yeah, and it's kind of amazing because all the international fans were freaking out because this movie released a few months ago, I believe, or last month, I can't remember, and international fans are like, we don't have when it's gonna premiere in theaters, and we want to see it, and just, and then finally it's going to be here, and it's Haikyuu. And premiere date is May 30th in LA. I'm not sure, but check your local listings and see when you're going to be able to watch it. Yeah, so hound that down, because Haikyuu, man.
It's called Haikyuu the Dumpster Battle, which I didn't mean to call Demon Slayer Hot Garbage earlier, knowing that this one's called Dumpster Battle. I'm expecting much more from the Haikyuu movie than the Demon Slayer movie.
Yes, especially since there's not going to be a new season of Haikyuu. It's just going to be a series of movies, I think 3 movies, and then it's going to end the whole series.
Which is kind of a crazy way to do it, but I mean, I think a lot of these companies are having a hard time keeping up with demand of how much work it is to put out a full-length season of anime and how long it takes, and then people kind of move on to the next thing, and so I think they're probably trying to take it in bite-sized chunks that way.
Yeah, definitely, and especially how, like, what is the studio, Mappa, which does, like, Jujutsu Kaisen and I think Mashal?
Yeah, they had animators just walk off the job because of the conditions were so bad.
Oh, the conditions were terrible. So, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's like, I think they also did Zom 100 where, like, they just stopped working after episode 9 and then, like, we never got. I think they eventually finished it now, but yeah, it was just this kind of, like, mayhem. So it's understandable why, you know, they're only going to do movies for Haikyuu, which I am so ready for.
It should be good, and from the preview, it looks like 100% new story. It's not rehashing anything. Like, they're taking the story and they're pushing it down the road a lot.
And if anyone wants to see pictures of my Haikyuu collection, you know, of my figures and stuff, I will post it on Instagram. Just let me know.
There's a lot of them.
Hee hee hee.
Also, how on earth Haikyuu makes volleyball, like, so freaking cool. I've never been a big sports anime person. I've never been one to watch those. But Haikyuu does it so well. I'm like, oh, sports anime, that's a thing.
Oh, it's so emotional, and it just gets your blood boiling. And even if you don't like sports, because it's so, like, emotion driven and, like, character driven, that it's just, like, those moments where, like, you don't even think you care, but then, like, it's those moments, and it's, like, very, like, underdog. And I don't know, just the character development, the team build, when, like, it's just a bunch of guys that don't even like each other come together, and they, like, they're enemies, and then they have to work as a team. And then finally, I love, like, the analogy from the coach when they're like, oh, it's like the mechanisms, the cogs coming together to make this machine finally work properly. It's just fucking good.
Well, we've already discussed on this podcast how you love when a team comes together.
Oh my god.
Like, you love when a group, a group of unlikely allies forms Voltron.
Oh, I love Band of Misfits. It's just my favorite. It's like that mod squad, you know?
I mean, that is kind of Spy Family. They're the band of misfits that fit together, and they shouldn't fit together. But they fit together perfectly because each one brings a different cog to the table.
Yeah.
And that's how they work and how they, you know, succeed. And they wouldn't be as good apart as they would be together. That's where you get, like, the feeling of, like, oh, without my brotherhood of whether it's a spy family or a team of volleyball players, like, I wouldn't be the same without you all.
Yeah. Anyway, that was so off subject, but I just wanted to talk about Haikyuu, really.
Well, at least we weren't talking about Unknown.
We can talk about that again.
No, we can't. This is an anime episode. All anime, all the time.
Okay.
Until they come out with an unknown anime.
Ooh.
Oh,
an
boy.
unknown anime? Oh my god. I could do this.
So, spoiler alert, in Haikyuu, the guys from Unknown joined the team. They've gone back in time and they're in high school again.
Anyway, let's go back to the rating. For me, Spy Family Code White gets drinks on a pool deck. I love that it's simple and easy. It's not hard to watch. It's not complex. But it's just so super enjoyable.
I agree. For me, it gets Around the World in 80 Days because I honestly couldn't think about it being better. It does all of the things I wanted it to do, and nothing more. It didn't really exceed expectations, but I had forgotten how much I enjoyed Spy Family. I'd kind of, yeah, that was good. But when I started watching the movie, I started to remember how much I really liked the show. And when a movie does that, I'm like, yeah, okay. And it did everything it should have done. It didn't do anything it shouldn't have done. It didn't give you anything extra, that it didn't surprise me in any way, but I don't think I was hoping it would. So for me, expectations completely met. I have no notes. It was great. Around the World in 80 Days.
Awesome. I am going to recommend a song this week. It's called Disoriented by Lo Mana and Ray Sarah. It's just this kind of like, it's an anime style Japanese song, and it's really catchy and good, and I highly recommend listening to it. And you can check IG, as I will put a sample of it on Instagram, and yeah, check them out. So thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.
And we will not be talking about Unknown next week.
We could talk about Unknown.
We're not going to, though.
But we might.
Very little.